name's Erin and my practice is primarily based in text work. My practice kind of aims to interrupt the linear performance of reading and represents an investigation into language as something that is physical, while simultaneously I'm trying to negotiate the historical context of women's work and their place in the gallery. I've always been interested in ideas about the feminine and feminist art practices throughout my artistic career at university, and I think kind of like 3 years of investigation has culminated into primarily text-based practice, which kind of cemented itself halfway through second year, where I started looking at book works and like the power of the book as an object. Throughout my third year, I've been primarily working on a series of works that is based on l'écriture féminine, which is a principle defined by French feminist theorist Hélène Cixous in her seminal essay, The Laugh of Medusa. And the principle basically attempts to challenge masculinized histories of writing and how women can attempt to write in a language that wasn't made for them. The movement champions kind of non-cyclical, non-linear forms of writing based on expression, which are all intrinsic to kind of female lived experience, and I found myself drawn to the text. So I've been producing works based on and around the idea of the text itself through different responses, so some of them where I use the text as found language and others where I respond directly to the text. I started my investigations in print mediums due to the female-based craft association of the practice, and I've been researching the contributions of women to bookmaking in early religious orders, also the contributions in the 19th century to typesetting, and in the 20th century to secretarial work. And I wanted to attempt to reappropriate these forms and put them in the gallery space, kind of separating them from their patriarchal language that was already put in place. If I'm using women's writing while using these forms, what then happens? Each work kind of takes on a different life. You know, some are printed, some are handwritten, some I do using the typesetting machine, and although they are all different in medium, I feel like they all have connections and they kind of work as a body where the meanings reverberate off each other when they're put into the same space. So this led into an investigation of the performative elements of language and how I can use that to my advantage to make a statement in the gallery. Through the different marks, my kind of own body is disembodied within the works, and I think when that's put in the public gallery space, they kind of gain their own objectivity, they become less intimate and more public. So I started thinking about, you know, if women's lived experience, I think it is simultaneously public and intimate. So I thought that was something I could play upon with my own use of text. I think reading itself is a private act, which then becomes public when it's presented as an artwork. And I think that the pieces are individually transformed by each viewer and their own experience of reading, so there's a few layers of reading experience that comes out in each of the works. I wanted to play upon the performative aspect of the works. I think by changing the shape of language on a page, looking at the topography, and then also the viewer's own experience of their accent even, their own intonations that they put into something, and the responses of their body when they're reading is something that is quite interesting. So I wanted to try and enhance that by creating a bookwork called A Map of the Room, where I very loosely instructed the viewer how to move about the room, like how to move around my different pieces. And reading a book is already a performative kind of experience because you're moving the page, and then if I'm telling you to move as well, your whole body has a complete experience, which is public when it's in the gallery space, but also it's a completely intimate act. You can't really have two people reading the same book, you won't have the same experience. Then there's this kind of tension that's built up of what is public, what is private, and how does looking, reading, and text itself become public or private, and how do people respond to that? Because everyone's going to respond to it completely differently. So that's something I really want to play with, especially as I'm looking at women's lived experience. How can I refigure the audience to respond to a text written by a woman in kind of a female way, and how does their own body respond to that? Obviously, due to the current situation, I don't have access to the typesetting machine or big printers or anything, so I'm kind of re-evaluating where my practice sits, and I'm really thinking about the digital audience and how my work can be translated within the digital. Over the last few weeks I've been thinking a lot about how digital platforms could really enhance some of my ideas. I don't want to completely disregard the analog aspects of what I've been doing, but also I've been thinking a lot about the digital space and what that can offer as a space. I'm still working with a lot of my analog printing processes that I was doing before the situation happened, but also I've been thinking a lot about the digital space and how my work can exist in the digital as opposed to in the gallery space. I can still use these printed analog elements and put them onto a digital platform. On the digital, text can exist in a very different way, you know, it's temporary, things can glitch, things can crash, and that kind of enhances this idea of the non-linear that I've been looking at with literature for now, and kind of the boundaries within which that can exist.